What's up?
American soldier Mike says goodbye to his girlfriend Jenny before flying to North Africa for a special mission. 3 months later, Mike and his spotter Tommy are still in the African desert, waiting on a cliff top for their target. Eventually, they see two groups of people approaching from opposite directions, group coming on foot, while the other is convoy full of armed vehicles. The groups meet in the middle, and Tommy, along with his commander on the radio, order Mike to shoot, but he hesitates. Looks like a family reunion, not a terrorist doing business. Then Mike realizes it's a wedding, and his target is the groom's father, who is now standing behind the couple. He informs his commander about the situation, and receives orders to kill his fiancée to reach the target at the same time. Mike refuses to cruelly kill civilians, and lies to his commander saying that he lost the target. At that moment, the brightness of the site's display reveals his location to the guards at the ceremony, who immediately open fire. Mike fires a few shots back before fleeing with Tommy, while the guards rush to evacuate their boss from the area. Some of the guards begin to approach Mike and Tommy in their vehicles. The pair have no choice but to jump and roll down the hill. They run for cover behind a rock formation, and Tommy calls his commander for rescue, but his GPS broke and he can't offer his exact position. The enemy is getting closer, so Mike shoots at the hill to make them go in another direction. Suddenly his enemies leave because they see there is a sandstorm coming. Mike and Tommy decide use it as cover and walk through it, while Tommy makes another call. His commander tells them to get to a village located 5 hours west so they can be rescued. Eventually, the pair make it out of the storm and begin walking in the unbearable sun of the desert. Tommy talks all the time and shares stories about his son and wife back home, but Mike still doesn't say much. Frustrated, Tommy points out that something is clearly bothering Mike inside and asks about Jenny, thinking about the possibility of marriage moments. Later, they receive a message on the radio explaining that the main team has had complications and the new meeting point has been chosen, meaning the pair will have Grum. They have to cross the desert to get there. Because of the dunes, the radio won't work, so they will have to be extremely careful. After a lot of walking, Mike and Tommy find the sandstorm again and stop to wait. They see a man with a child in the end of a rope walking through the storm, but they don't notice the pair, so they don't fire. As the wind blows, the warning sign comes loose from its post. When the sandstorm passes, Tommy and Mike continue walking in the blazing sun. Suddenly, the warning sign falls right in front of Mike's feet. He can't read it, but the skull obviously means danger, and he remembers that the Itawa buried many landmines in this area. However, Tommy thinks Mike is taking this too seriously and explains that it is the villagers' trick to keep enemies away from their villages. Tommy also points out that going back means dying of thirst, so he remains confident that the sign means the village is next. After a few hours of walking, Mike freezes when he steps on something, but it's just a little toy soldier. He puts it in his vest before noticing Tommy is out of water, so he shares his, desperate to keep his spirits up. Tommy starts walking backwards as he continues to tease Mike for thinking too much. Suddenly clicking can be heard, and Mike tries to warn his friend, but it's too late. Tommy takes another step and a mine explodes, with his ears ringing. Mike steps towards Tommy, only to hear another click. And he freezes in shock as he realizes he's on top of a mine and not can move without activating it. When the sand from the explosion dissipates, Mike sees that Tommy survived, but lost both legs. He can't stop screaming in pain and begging for help. So Mike shouts back to calm him down and explain the situation under Mike's guidance. Tommy tries to reach his bag with the radio, but the pain is too much. His mood worsens when he looks down and discovers that he has lost his legs, causing him to panic. Mike calms him by remembering his family and mentions the medicine injections they carry in their vest. Tommy immediately takes both injections instead of saving one for later, as Mike says so. Tommy tries to get the bag again, and this time he succeeds, but unfortunately, the radio is not working. Getting desperate, Mike considers moving away from the landmine because there's a chance it's old and broken. However, the risk is high and Tommy wants him to live, so he grabs his gun and asks Mike to tell his son he loves him before giving up. Mike screams in frustration and sadness, but quickly controls himself as he realizes that losing control could make him fall. So he begins to very carefully lower his body until he is on his knees and uses his knife to gently move the sand. He finds metal round under his foot, confirming that he is on top of a landmine. Without Mike knowing, the man is watching from afar, but leaves without helping. Then Mike joins his shoelaces, the strap of his gun, and his axe to create a hook. He throws a few times to try and get the bag but can't reach it, moving carefully again. Mike gets up and almost falls while throwing the axe, but luckily recovers in time. Now he finally manages to drag the bag towards him and grab the radio, only to discover that the battery is dead and the spare is in Tommy's vest. At least the radio can be charged by the sun, so he leaves the small panel on the ground to charge. Then Mike keeps busy checking his supplies. A few hours later, the radio finally charges, and Mike is able to speak to his commander, explaining the situation and requesting rescue. Suddenly, the sandstorm starts to approach again, so Mike quickly covers his face, grabs his things, and crouches down to wait as still as possible against the wind. His body shakes a lot, but Mike is strong and gets through it without activating the mine. When the storm passes, Mike looks around and discovers that the wind has pushed Tommy's body right next to him. After covering his friend's face with his hat, he opens his vest pocket and finds a photo of the family from Tommy. He takes a moment of silence and waits back before finally picking up the battery. Unfortunately, the wind blew the bag too far away, and now he doesn't have access to the radio. The depressing irony makes Mike laugh as time passes. Mike can do nothing but wait. He covers his head to protect it from the sun and drinks the last drop of water. Becoming desperate, he fires a few shots into the sky and screams for help. But to no avail, he begins to consider giving up as his only option. But at that moment, he sees a Berber man passing by. Mike points his gun at him and asks him to stop, but the Berber doesn't listen and keeps moving, thinking that he may not speak English. Mike makes explosion noises to indicate that this is a landmine area. However, Bear just ridicules him. Then the man starts walking towards Mike in a zigzag pattern. He suddenly asks why Mike is trapped, revealing that he understands English. Mike explains the situation as he continues asking for water and the radio. However, Bear ridicules him for not moving. He grabs his canteen but doesn't help with the radio. He just walks away, ignoring Mike's screams and wondering if his strange movements help him avoid mines. Hours later, Mike forces himself to urinate into a bag to drink. He barely takes a sip before a girl appears running towards him in the same zigzag pattern. She hands him her canteen full of water, and Mike drinks it, while imagining that she is the daughter of the Berber man. Then the girl takes out a toy soldier from her bag, and Mike shows that she found an exchange. She uses both to represent him and Tommy. Without using words, she pushes the toy to tell Mike that he needs to move on. Mike says he can't move and starts shouting over the radio without meaning to, so the girl just leaves. Later, as the sun starts to set, Mike plays some music on his phone and lights a fire. He can hear animals howling in the distance. Then gets distracted by looking at pictures of Jenny on his phone and watching the video she made, especially for his departure, as a good luck charm. Eventually the fire goes out and Mike falls asleep while looking at the clock. At night, Mike continues trying to contact the base, while Tommy's hallucination tells him that he is just killing the battery. At that moment, his phone starts ringing and Mike sees that it's a call from his father, so Tommy points out that it's not real. Mike loses his cool and pushes Tommy. Then Tommy remembers that this is happening because Mike has never dealt with his inner demons. Mike says that leaving Jenny makes him as bad as his father, but Tommy reassures him that he isn't. Flashback reveals that Mike proposed to Jenny, but she refused because she thought he needed to heal first. In the present, Mike almost falls asleep, but at that moment, the wild dogs appear again. They activate a mine and move away from the explosion, but this time they don't go away. Mike shoots in the dark in front of him, only for Tommy to warn him to be careful. Suddenly, Dog approaches him from the side and bites his arm, so Mike shoots him. Tommy then convinces him to try the technique his commander mentioned. So Mike desperately starts digging in the sand. Unfortunately, the dogs jump on him to attack and push Mike before he can finish the trench, causing the explosion of the mine and injuring him. When he falls dead, Mike blinks and realizes that the explosion was a hallucination, but the dogs really are attacking. Determined to survive, he grabs his knife and begins killing them, receiving several bites in the process. During the fight, he keeps thinking about the times he was beaten in the past. At dawn, all the dogs are dead and Mike survived. At that moment, Neo Radio finally activates and Mike discovers that the convoy is delayed due to attack, so he will be rescued in 17 hours, knowing that the chances of survival are low. The base connects Mike to Jenny, and he immediately starts apologizing for destroying everything he touches as he sees her in front of him. The communication ends before Jenny can respond, and Mike finally passes out, but is held by Burberry in time, while the man applies an ointment to Mike's wounds. He explains that a mine took his leg. Showing his wooden leg, he was very scared in the hospital, but a nurse showed him enough sympathy to help him move on, and eventually she became his wife. So Burberry makes Mike drink medicine, warning him that it will help with the pain, but will also make the hallucinations worse. Mike mentions the girl, but the Burberry reveals that he was the one who brought the canteen. He now only has 3 children because his daughter died when the mine took her leg. They used to collect mines together to sell them to guerrillas, and the girl was very good at recovering the mines, replacing them with old cans. Burberry thinks he's not as lucky as Mike, but at least he's free because he learned to move on. Then the man leaves, and Mike sees his daughter walking next to him. Next to him, suddenly the medicine starts to take effect, and Mike sees the walls of his childhood home coming out of the ground. He opens the door and sees himself as a child watching his father being extremely violent with his mother. When his father noticed him, he said that he would teach him how to be a man, and also punched him. The blow makes Mike return to reality for a second, only for the flashbacks to start again. He sees his happy life with Jenny, but a clicking sound interrupts with a memory of his mother in the hospital bed. Mike had run away from home in fear and left his mother with his father, which resulted in his hospitalization. Another memory shows Tommy and Mike at a bar watching 2 men harassing a waitress, who turns out to be Jenny. Furious, Mike came to his defense and started beating the guys with a lot of pent-up aggression. The hallucinations mix again, and his father reappears to punch him. Mike's mind alternates between the desert and the memory of his mother dying in the hospital, which makes him feel guilty to this day. It is the vision of Tommy that finally brings him back to reality to warn him that the convoy is coming. A voice on the radio is also trying to contact him, but Mike's dry throat can barely speak. He tries to wave his hand, but is too far away to be seen. Then Tommy reminds him of the smoke grenade, and just as Mike is about to pick it up, is suddenly hit by enemy hiding in the dunes. Thinking of Jenny as an incentive not to give up, a bleeding Mike leans over and finally picks up the smoke grenade, but before he can activate it, the enemy shoots again and makes him healing. He lets her go. Memories of arguments with Jenny and her leaving fill his mind as Mike fights back, shooting as many enemies as he can before running out of bullets. His father appears again, and Mike remembers his mother telling him to let her go. Confused and overwhelmed, Mike points his gun at his father, who encourages him to do so. However, he thinks about Jenny and how he asked her out after the bar fight, so he decides to be good to her and not shoot. His father hugs him at the same time as he remembers Jenny's hug, helping him finally move on. The convoy won't stay much longer, and the grenade isn't close enough. Mike remembers Bear Bear's words and carefully moves away from the mine, but nothing happens. Shocked, he digs up the mine, only to discover that it was one of the girl's cans all along. Inside the can, he finds a toy soldier. Mike laughs in relief and finally grabs the grenade, activating it in time for the convoy to find him and rescue him. Sometime later, a cured, Mike returns to the United States and reunites with Jenny, ready to start a better life with her.